Good afternoon. My report for this afternoon is the discovery of index cases 2013 gastroenteritis outbreak in Cananga, Leyte, from Typhoon Haiyan to health crisis. I will be your reporter for today's discussion. My name is Rigel Kent Joseph Patistil RMT. So let's begin by understanding the context. On November 8, 2013, Typhoon Haiyan, also known locally on, as Typhoon Yolanda, hit the Philippines with devastating force. Over 6,000 lives were lost and around 4 million people were displaced. While some places were visibly and heavily damaged, others like Cananga in Leyte appeared to be less affected. Residents from Cananga Leyte didn't look severely damaged, or the places didn't look severely damaged. Many assumed it was safe, and residents returned to their homes just 2 days after the typhoon. Unfortunately, this assumption led to a critical public health oversight. No diseases surveillance was conducted early on. The problem here is that when we only respond based on what we see, like collapsed buildings or flooded streets, we might miss silent damages. In Kananga cases, the water system had sustained damage that wasn't immediately obvious that would soon have serious consequences. Despite the lack of visible destruction, the local health authorities in Kananga took proactive steps. The municipal health the municipal hospital in Kananga and in rural health unit decided to activate active disease surveillance. Their focus was on illnesses that usually spike after disasters like the vector-borne diseases, tetanus, and diarrhea. One of the example of the vector-borne diseases is the dengue. Now here's where it gets interesting. 3 weeks after the typhoon, there was a sudden and significant increase in cases of gastroenteritis. In November alone, 60 cases were reported. To give perspective, that was a 757% increase compared to the same month in the previous year. That's not a small jump. That's a serious, significant, or signal that something was wrong and in the community. So there is something wrong in the community. When the numbers began to rise, the Department of Health stepped in to conduct a full outbreak investigation. Their goal was to find out what's causing the spike in diarrhea cases. Where did it start? And how is it spreading? They defined a case as any person who had diarrhea 3 or more times within 24 hours, along with the least one symptom like fever, vomiting, nausea, or abdominal pain. Medical records were reviewed for patients seen between November 11 and December 10, 2013. The team also interviewed and examined the first 10 suspected cases. Through this process, they were able to identify a pattern Many of the early cases live in the nearby areas were using the same water supply. This led to the identification of what we call the index case, or the first known person to have the diseases in this outbreak. This steps finding the index case is very important in the outbreak investigation because it helps trace the origin and control further spread. So, lessons from the discovery. So, the outbreak showed that less visibly affected areas can still face public health crisis. Just because an area looks fine after the disease or disaster doesn't mean it's safe. Kananga didn't appear badly hit by the Typhoon Yolanda, so it didn't get much attention. But the lack of surveillance allowed a silent health crisis to develop. This teaches us the vulnerability isn't always visible. Early return of the evacuees and damaged water infrastructures equals hidden risk. People returned to their homes only 2 days after the storm, unaware that the water infrastructure had been compromised. Cracked pipes, no chlorine, and possible contamination from rivers created a perfect condition for the waterborne outbreak, something they didn't see and what were exposed to daily. Bacteria known as Aeromonas hydrophila confirmed in both patients and water sources. Laboratory testing confirmed the presence of Aeromonas hydrophila in both the stool sample of the patients and in the municipal water tanks. That's clear scientific evidence of the source of infection linking the outbreak directly to the contaminated water. Okay, so this will be the environmental investigation. So first, the method of water disinfection. So 77% of cases didn't treat their water. Only 15% of control drank untreated water. And the crude odd odd ratio is around 21.7 and adjusted AR or odds ratio is around 18.2. So what is this most significant factor in the table? People who didn't boil or chlorinate their drinking water were 18 times more likely to get sick. This confirms that contaminated drinking water was the main cause of the outbreak. Second investigation will be the toilet facility. 18% of cases had no access to a toilet versus only 30% of control. Lack of toilet access increased the risk of getting sick, but not as strongly as water disinfection. This could suggest that open defecation and poor sanitation played a minor role, but the main problem was still on the unsafe water. Next investigation will be the water source. 21% of cases use deep well or spring water versus the 5% of the control. Surprisingly, the adjusted odd ratio is around zero point 0.6, meaning this wasn't a major risk factor or risk after the controlling other variables. This shows that where the water came from didn't matter as much as whether it was treated. People who used municipal water but didn't disinfect it were at much higher risk. Next investigation will be hand washing before eating, almost equal in both groups. 20% 90% control versus 89% cases. Hand washing before eating had no real impact in this outbreak. This reinforced that the problem was not on the hygiene behavior but on the contaminated water. Hand washing after defecating were very similar groups. Just like before, personal hygiene did not explain the outbreak pattern. Use of spoon and fork, uh, although there was a slight differences, it's not enough to be a significant. Sharing utensils or eating with hands didn't seem to be a major risk. So, most likely, the use of spoon and fork, hand washing after defecating, hand washing before eating is more likely on the personal hygiene outbreak. But this outbreak is patterned directly to the waterborne outbreaks. So to back up this up with data, here's what was found. 105 total cases were recorded. Nearly half of the patients had to be hospitalized, although thankfully no deaths occurred. Most of those affected were children around aged 1 to years old. 72% of the people who got sick admitted that they didn't boil or chlorinate their drinking water. Testing of the water system revealed that chlorine was not being used properly, and in some tanks it was completely missing. The statistical analysis found that people who drank untreated water were 18 times more likely to get sick. So this map clearly shows the relationship between water source and the diseases attack rate. The darker red, this the one. The darker the red, the higher the number of diarrhea cases. We can see that the most affected village like Poblacion and Tugbong all depended on the municipal water system. Meanwhile, those using deep wells had a very few or no cases at all. This visual evidence strengthens the conclusion that the outbreak was waterborne and linked to the damage and untreated municipal water supply. So this outbreak is a great example why post-disaster public health responses should be a comprehensive. Just because a town seems okay doesn't mean it's safe. Water systems need to be inspected, monitored, and maintained. The public health teams must ensure that all communities, not just the visibly damaged ones, receive proper attention and disease surveillance. Most of all, simple practices like boiling or chlorinating drinking water could prevent dozens of people, mostly children, from getting sick. These small actions can make a huge differences in disaster response and disease prevention. So that will be my report. I hope that you learned something, and I think um, Mom will be the next reporter.